Fish and Whips podcast, hosted by Nick Alvarez, is brought to you by Anchor, the free and easy way to make a podcast. With creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor can also distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. So if you're looking to start your own podcast, look no further and join Anchor today.
You are listening to the Fish and Whips podcast, where every week we discuss all things Miami Marlins, pitching staff performance, and up-to-date news on the National League East Division. And here's your host, lifelong fan, Nick Alvarez.
And welcome back, Marlins fans, to the Fish and Whips podcast, hosted by me, Nick Alvarez. We have a lot of stuff to go over today. Obviously, the start to the Marlins season. We definitely have to go over the starting pitching and also some slow starts from the Marlins players. Also, I am going to go over some of the controversy last night involving Chisholm, and we will get to that in a bit. But first, I wanted to talk to you about the Marlins' start to the season. Obviously, disappointing 5-8 start to the year. The offense has been inconsistent at best. The starting pitching has been, I would say, about, if I had to give it a grade, I would give it about a B+. The starting pitching has been relatively good to start out the year. I am not going to blame them for our early woes. The defense, it did, I think, lose us one game against the Cardinals. But overall, it has not been bad. I would say it's been above average. I would say it's about a solid B-. The offense, considering it's mostly been carried by three people, has been very underwhelming and honestly pretty atrocious. So I'm going to have to give that a D for sure. A lot of it is because of the fact that a good amount of the players in the starting lineup have gotten off to slow starts, especially players like Jesus Aguilar, Avisail Garcia, Miguel Rojas, and Jacob Stallings, to name a few. So right there, that's 4 players out of the lineup. Almost half of the lineup has been underproducing or has just been non-existent at the plate. And so when you have a near majority of what they would call automatic outs in your lineup, it's very hard for you to win games consistently. Now, can that change? Oh yeah, most definitely. I would say probably the 3 players that are carrying us right now are Jazz Chisholm, Jesus Sanchez, and they've both gotten off to fantastic starts to the year. And I would also say Joey Wendle has been a welcome surprise. Not many people were expecting him to produce a lot offensively, but the fact of the matter is he has produced when his name has been called upon more than most. And so those are the three players that are really, getting back or helping us win games. The one player who has had his ups and downs so far this year has been Jorge Soler. Soler started off pretty slow, but hitting, hitting, getting a lot of his hits when the game was already decided. But the past couple of games, he's had a few hits. He seems to, start. He seems to be getting it. Is what I was trying to say. He seems to, you know, he's starting to turn a corner. I feel like, as far as his offense goes, and he has been, he's been good in left field. He's been making the routine plays. He's been, doing just fine in the outfield. He's also had points in the DH spot where he's done okay, but I really feel like he is going to be turning a corner relatively soon. Now, if he can go on a hot streak and help us win games, then we could be a little dangerous, and maybe the wins will come along more consistently. But we also need the other four bats in the lineup to produce. And right now, they just aren't. And it's still relatively early in the season. We're only 13 games in, but it's a little worrisome. I will say that. It's been really tough to watch Avisail Garcia at the plate so far this season. I am nicknaming him right now Mr. Ground Ball because pretty much, except for his home run and garbage time earlier this week, or last week, I should say, everything else he has hit has been into the ground. Mostly with ground balls to third base, shortstop, or back to the pitcher. And when it comes to Avisail Garcia, it's been noted in his career that he's been a relatively slow starter out of the gate as far as his offense goes. Now, I know that's not what Marlins fans exactly want to hear right now because of our record and because our starting pitching has come out of the gate dealing. So the fact that we don't have the run support for, our top three guys, or essentially all five, has been concerning. It's been troubling to say the least, because if we even just got a little bit more offense, we would probably be around 500 right now, or maybe a little better, like 7-6. So we missed out probably on 2 games that we definitely had a chance of winning. Opening day was one of them. I'm not going to fault them too much because it was opening day, but it's still been frustrating at some points of the season. I'm going to go into more about Jazz Chisholm and Jesus Sanchez. They have been, on fire to start the season. Jazz last night in the leadoff spot was not his best night, obviously. He went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts before being pinch hit in a relatively key situation. Jesus Sanchez has been consistent with the bat all season. He's batting over 350. He's driving in runs. He has 3 homers to start the year. And his approach at the plate has been something that's been surprising a lot of people, because a lot of his at-bats, he's not necessarily getting a lot of meatballs at the plate, or what some people would also call like cement mixers or things of that nature. He has been approaching it to where he's taking what pitching is giving them. And so with that approach, he's been able to just focus on making solid contact. And when you're just focused on making solid contact, I feel like good things will happen for you more than if you're just trying to hit the ball out of the park every at bat, because that's never going to happen. Not even the greats can say that. Now, it happened for them more often than most, of course, but at the same time, you really just want to make solid contact with the ball. And I feel like the rest of the team should be looking at Sanchez's approach at the plate and taking it into account, and even learning from his approach, especially the guys who have not hit well so far this season, including Rojas, Aguilar, Garcia, and Stallings. Now, when it comes to Stallings, I will say that his offense, while it's frustrating to see him hit right now, it's also not his most important thing that he brings to the table. His most important thing is the starting pitching staff and controlling them. And he's done a fantastic job so far. When it comes to Sandy, Pablo, and Trevor Rogers in this past recent start. Now, he struggled to get out of the first inning again for the second straight start, but after that, he was relatively on point. He did not really have a bad inning after that. So after the first inning, I think he threw like 33 pitches in the first inning, and then from the second inning through the fifth, he only threw 62. So if you can cancel out that first inning, he was averaging 15 pitches an inning, which is about average for a starting pitcher. It's not bad. So I think having Stallings as the starting battery, and his calming influence and him calling games and framing pitches has really helped the pitching staff tremendously. Now, when it comes to Jesus Aguilar, we've seen some flashes of him getting back into the swing of things. His attitude people have been questioning it, not necessarily being negative, but not being as, joyful and vibrant as he usually is. And I think that also has probably come with his production at the plate. I think he has probably been a little bit frustrated with that. So I'm not going to hold it against him. But I think, he's trying to focus on just making contact. And in the past couple of games, he's put some good swings together. He's put some good at bats together. So I think he'll be okay. With Rojas, for some reason, his hitting has just declined tremendously. So I'm a little concerned with him. I mean, his fielding is still pretty top notch, but as far as the offense for him goes, it's been almost non-existent. So that's been frustrating. Yeah. And then, of course, Avisaro Garcia, huge disappointment as of to the beginning of the season. Can he turn it around and, start hitting well? Sure. He definitely could. But he came up in a key spot last night with the bases loaded, and we were only down by 1 at the time. And we had the starting pitcher right on the ropes. He was flailing. Even the manager had come out to consider taking him out. He stuck with him, and we could have made that decision backfire a lot. And Garcia could have made that decision backfire. But instead of, just being patient and trying to make solid contact, he just hit another ground ball right back to the pitcher to end the inning. And then that was probably our biggest chance to score runs in that game, because then we eventually lost 3-0. So it's been tough to watch him hit right now. But could it improve? Yeah. There are some people around who, obviously think he is the worst signing in Marlins history, which I think, is a stretch out of left field. Do I think right now the signing has been proven to be bad? Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, he hasn't produced. He hasn't done anything at the plate. So of course it has, he hasn't proven his worth. But again, still 13 games into the season. We have 49 games left. Still a lot can happen. So I'm not going to make my decision on him and the signing just yet. Our bullpen has been relatively solid. What I'm really concerned with, as far as this season goes so far, is the managerial decision making. And it starts at the top with Don Mattingly. Especially last night. It was right out for everyone to see. In a relatively key situation, he had Jazz Chisholm pulled out of the game for a pinch hitter with the runner on base for Brian De La Cruz. Now, if you saw the game, then you wanted Jazz to have the opportunity, even if he had 3 strikeouts beforehand, to make something happen. Because more often, I would say, more often than not, Jazz is a polarizing, exciting, energetic player. And you want to see him play. And the fact that Mattingly essentially took that away from him for one at bat in that key situation, it made a lot of people angry, including me. I was pretty irate on Twitter, to be honest with you. So, and then of course, even though De La Cruz has had a good season, it's still hard to pinch hit in the majors. Coming off cold and facing Tyler Matzik, lefty, who has pretty solid numbers even against right-handed hitters. De La Cruz then struck out on 3 pitches, and that was the end of that little rally that we could have had. And on top of that, we pinch ran for Stallings, took him out of the game, and he was calling a fantastic game, only giving up 1 run. The relievers that came in were doing really well for backup catcher Peyton Henry. Now, Henry, I'm not sure if he pinch ran or not, but he did come in for Stallings at the catcher position, and in a key situation for him against when they had 2 runners on in the bottom of the 8th, bottom of the 7th, against Matt Olson, who has arguably been the hottest hitter in the major leagues up to after the first 12, 13 games of the year for them. Came up with 2 runners on, high leverage situation, and Payne Henry calls for an off-speed pitch, center cut. Now it was low, but to give somebody a chance to hit something low and somewhat down the middle, especially to a hot hitter like Matt Olson, obviously it didn't go in their favor, and he ended up doubling down the line, and the Braves scored 2 more runs, and that pretty much crushed the Marlins' hopes of trying to get back in that game in the 9th inning. Even on opening day with Peyton Henry, and he had Anthony Bass in the 10th inning. Now, Anthony Bass had gotten a really momentous double play in that inning to really help us out. And then with a runner on base and the outfield shifted far to the left side, not to left field, sorry, to the right, to where the left fielder was more in left center. The guy calls for an inside pitch on a right-handed hitter, and of course, the guy hits it down the line, and the Marlins had no chance of really getting to that ball and making a play because they ended up winning the game on that hit. So, in key situations, I feel like Henry's pitch calling has been below average. And so far, it cost the Marlins 1 game, and it took them out of possibly coming back in another. And as a backup catcher in Major League Baseball, you need to be able to do it one or the other. You need to be able to hit relatively well for a catcher, or you need to be a defensive stalwart. And right now, I don't think Henry has either. So, when it comes down to it, the managerial decisions by Don Mattingly have probably cost the Marlins, I would say, a chance at winning 2 separate games this season, maybe 3. And that's out of 13 games. That's not good. It's not. And it's frustrating to see, them sticking to their formula, as they've been calling it on the air, but them not realizing that their formula, their plan that they've been trying to stick to, obviously isn't working. They're 5-8. Time to replan, reorganize, do something else. Because whatever you think is working for you right now, or the formula that you had in mind at the start of the season, either teams have figured it out and are exploiting you for it, or it's just not working. And so you need to re-strategize. You need to do something different, because this 5-8 start, it can still trickle over for the rest of the month, and perhaps even into May. So something needs to change when it comes to the managerial decision making. And it needs to change soon. Or else by, late May, early June, the Marlins could already be out of it. And, it'll just be another squandered year of where they had the opportunities and they failed. All right. Thanks for joining us, or joining me, I should say. And I will see you next time. I'm out.
Thanks for listening to the Fish and Whips podcast. For updates and timely commentary, follow the Fish and Whips podcast on Twitter at Fish N Whips. That's fish, the letter N, and the word whips. You can also follow your host, Nick Alvarez, on Twitter at NicksTake22. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.